Now I'd like to introduce to you Lucy Moore. She is the head of maintenance and operations. So she will have some great information for all of you. You know, a lot of people have been talking about the maintenance part, keeping them abreast of what's going on. And so Lucy will put the period on that.
Exclamation point. So I'm going to hop back on Karen's topic for just a second about studded tires. Because I have the unfortunate privilege of being the one that can extend studded tire season based on weather. And my first season, hot off coming from the pavements unit position, or actually a different one, the weather came out and I had the unfortunate experience of having to extend studded tire season after knowing how much damage is done. I've also seen the studies, and I'm here to tell you, poor Karen, stop it. There are studless tires that are actually just as good, except for a very few things. So if you need them, go get the studless ones. It's got a little mountain snowflake on it, and Les Schwab will sell them to you after they try to sell you the ones that they take off and put on all the time. So anyway, enough of that. On to maintenance. So I'm Lucy Moore. I'm ODOT's State Maintenance and Operations Engineer. I end up wearing 3 hats. First one is branch manager for the maintenance and operations branch. And the second one is really business line, procedure, policy, guidance, directive for the maintenance and operations of the state highway system, fence to fence, which includes for all the modes that are using that system. Everything but the trains are sitting there running on the highway, some part of it. And I'm also ODOT's emergency manager in a major event for the entire agency. So just sometimes I have to figure out which hat I'm wearing, so sometimes you might need to ask me. But going back to our branch for a minute, because it's something you guys probably don't deal with a whole lot, except for some of it. We've got maintenance services, which I'll get back to in a minute, but those procedures and guidelines for day-to-day maintenance activities are in there. The wireless section, which is the state radio system, which is the radios used by you guys for ODOT, OSP, ties into a bunch of other agencies for incident response around the state. So it's its own infrastructure, all of its own, typically not on the highway system itself. And the ITS program is inside our branch, and it is one that is through planning function all the way through the maintenance function. So it's the one piece of design that steps into project delivery that you would be working with that's in our branch. And the emergency management program, we work with pretty much everybody in the agency, the regions, the districts, tech service, statewide project delivery, planning, DMV, motor carrier, director's office, everything pulling together for one program that we unfortunately need to use a little bit too much around here, especially the last few years. Guidance for utility and miscellaneous permits also comes out of the branch. We also have fleet services for the agency. So we buy and surplus all the equipment and fleet used for the agency. So the cars you drove over here today, we bought and, well, okay, with your money or your manager's money, but, and prep and ship out to you guys. The storeroom, this is where you can go get your hats, your vests, gloves, a variety of equipment, hydration packs, that kind of thing. So we service that. It also services all the license plates and titles for DMV, as well as their forms. So we shuttle them out to them on a regular basis. So that's kind of another agency-wide function that's tucked into the branch. So that's, got to get used to all this tech. By the time I figure it all out, we'll be gone. So really going back to a lot of the maintenance services, most of the policies, procedures, and guidance for the district offices and how they do day-to-day maintenance and operation of the system is from us. We pull in a lot of technical experts and stakeholders to develop these things. So we'll pull in different people in Steve's section, branch, whatever you're called these days, branch, come in to help us with that and make sure we're meeting all the various requirements along the way. We translate it into maintenance in district, so that works pretty good. Just like pavement selection process and a lot of the features that you'll find in the Fix-It program, we do have to prioritize our work and the features that we go out and maintain. Similar philosophy, with one key exception, is we have to maintain it all. We just don't maintain it all to the same level. They're all federal aid routes. We're required by law to maintain all the highways that are federal aid systems. So we have to keep everything to some level of functional. We can't just ignore it. So anytime the STIP doesn't get to it, we're there with fingers, Band-Aids, bubble gum, duct tape, trying to keep it going. But we do prioritize by the routes, similar to the pavements, interstate first, all the way down to the French Glen last. Anybody who knows where the French Glen is? Somebody, all right, yeah, good. There's cows on it. There might be more cow traffic and cow loads than anything else. There's a famous wildlife refuge on there now. So anyway, the features, the safety features are first. And even within those features, it's a big deal. Stop signs are the first top priority for signs. Those signs to the state park you'll find looking pretty ragged. I saw them today. Those are last. So if it's a brown sign, it could be there a long time. Activities, keeping the highway open and safe. And we have a budget. We don't get to expand it and contract it. We can't change project limits. We just pick what we are and aren't going to do. So we have basic guidelines in general that come from the branch, and then the districts have to work within those based on what they know. So that's the level. So now we're going to kind of shift over to the business line. And the biggest thing for the business line, within the ODOT mission, we've tightened ours up a tad, not a lot. But really, it's our job to keep the highway as open, as safe as we can with what we've been given. Because just like everybody else, we haven't been given near enough. So those trade-offs have to be made on a regular basis. So when you're having these project meetings and you're hoping to get feedback from maintenance, they may or may not be at those meetings. And I'll get into why in a minute. But it is super important that you do get to know your district managers and staff out there and think of them this way. And I'll do a quick analogy. They are really the internal owners, if we have an owner, of the system. Your project is a part of the system, but you are designing for the users, and you're also designing for the districts, because they've got to be able to maintain what you put out there, as well as anything else that you might not have touched, but you might have blocked, and their ability to manage what has to happen on that right-of-way. So you do it and you work it and you hand it back to them. So think about if you had $1 million and you won the lottery and you want somebody to design a house for you. Would you just give them $1 million and say, give me my dream house and walk away? Or would you want to be engaged and make sure they know how you want to use the house? So with all these other design requirements, you've got all the standards and everything else, there's a lot of other things that we need you to think about. And I think it's only something in the next couple of years we're going to really work hard towards working with those that have the standard procedures and everything else, the standards for what you're doing, to help get some of this infused into more of your documents. At least I'd hope so, or guidance. So the challenge is, I can't always get them to my PDT meeting. I hear that a lot. Well, they just need to show up to the meetings. That sounds awesome, except for these things. Landslide. This just happened. This is one of many photos of the Hooskinaden landslide on Southern 101. Happened in April. We're still in April. March, April. Happened recently. Got a lot of rain. This thing started to move again. You have two kinds of slides, the ones you fix, the ones you name. This one's named, and it's never going to be fixed. I think it's $400 and some million to go over this thing with a bridge. It's crazy money. We won't be spending it. You could take it and rebuild Columbia River Crossing. Now, it's the same week, same district. The trees decided to come down all over. thousands and thousands of trees closed routes across the Cascades and across the Coast Range. Same people having to run out here with emergency contracts and crews and scramble and everything else. They're not going to make your meeting. Flooding, same darn week. And worse, same district. We've moved staff all over the place to try to help this district out. This was one of two that got hit hard. And believe it or not, then you hop across the mountains, Region 5, interstate. The trucks, nobody wanted to chain up. We had a chain requirement, they didn't want to chain up. They trashed the pavement too, by the way. So next thing you know, we finally say, chains off, got it under control. Now we have a train, a full-on train of cars driving down the road, and this trooper's out there helping us try to keep them moving. And one of them goes sideways, and they blow it, and we can't do anything. So in the wintertime, we could be out there doing more traffic management, and I just refer to them as the bozo driver, because they truly don't drive for the conditions. No matter how smooth and straight and flat we've designed that road and how well we've groomed it, they can still blow it because they don't want to slow down. So be aware of that when you're driving in the winter. Stay away from them. Give yourself lots of space. So anyway, this is their world, especially during the winter. So it's still critical for you guys to connect. And as designers, they want to talk to you. And we need them to, so call them. And you don't have to wait for a PDD meeting if you've got a question. Just call them. They will jump up and down for joy. Whoop, they care, yay! We know it's just one factor. You've got all sorts of constraints and requirements. But remember, these guys do have to hold it together. Slope, oh yeah, this was this year too. These are all fresh. Same district. Careful in District 7, coastal Southern Oregon. It's fun. You know, they would love to take a ride with you. We have like a bunch of you are new to your jobs. We have a bunch of really quite new frontline maintenance managers. And they don't look at plan sheets. I would say they probably don't understand how to read them. That's not what they do. Especially if you've got each feature on a different sheet, and I don't know what they look like now. I know what they used to look like when I was doing them, and you have to figure out how to put them all together on one sheet to figure it out. Drive it with them, talk to them, and they'll help you try to solve what you need to do as well as what they need to do. Ask them tough questions, but listen and learn and spread it along. Especially if you're designing in one region, you'll start seeing these things across you'll be able to translate from one issue to another, and you'll be able to stay within your design requirements for the engineering side and make them maintainable. So just a few considerations. We do have what's called a red flag list for maintenance. It's a checklist for them. In my mind, it's better off in yours. I did not bring copies because I heard we had huge numbers, but we'll be continuing to work that. It's more of this is what means the most to them about what your product is going to do to or for the long-term requirements of the job. So one of them is access to the features. How many roadway designers we got in here? There's a few. Okay, so I'm going to put a bunch of guardrail or barriers down the side of the road. Please take a look at what's behind those. Do we have signal poles, illumination? Probably won't have too many signal poles behind that, but illumination, ITS features. Are we cutting off the ability for a maintenance crew to be able to get their vehicle and all their equipment back there? We have some places that the crews right now are having to pull up on a fairly narrow shoulder next to the barrier, roll their window down, and hop out the window to cross the barrier, pulling their stuff along and hike with it to features. Because we didn't catch it, or if we catch it, it's too late, and they're just like, well, I can't stop my project because I'm almost out to bid. And you guys have the time frames, we all get it. That's why it needs to happen early, and have a discussion. Access, we need access. It may need to be designed, it may need to have some extra safety features if there's a gap in the barrier or something like that, but worth our time, worth your time for the safety of our crews. as well as the ability to even get there with the kind of equipment. Or else we're having to tear down the guardrail or move barrier. And if you have to do it all the time, that's a super drag. We don't want to have to do that. It's never probably as good as it got put in the first place. Water quality features. This is my favorite, not. We need to take care of the water that's coming off our system, no doubt about it. Swales are good. We do not have staff to go out and change cartridges for 1,000 of these things every few months, because that's kind of what's happening. These features are hopping up like rabbits. Really neat, doing the right thing, but we put ourselves in a bind by the time, if we don't think about it early on a project, almost like at scoping, to look at the options of where do we put that facility so that it doesn't have to be some kind of Filterra system or some other big gizmo. Because that many, it's just going to be difficult for our ability to fulfill our part of the commitment we made when we said that device is going to handle the water quality treatment. So you got to think all the way through, can we, throughout the life cycle, take care of what we're saying we're going to do? So it may be that all the way at the beginning of scoping, if you're in an urban environment, you're going to have to do something. Is there a place right outside that we can put a swale? If so, it better be in the limits of the project. So otherwise, you're not going to be able to go out there without a STIP amendment, which doesn't sound like much fun these days. So, so really, thoughts need to go into that. Formal landscaping versus natural. We're all about the right plant in the right place. So we're moving out a lot of landscaping in the name of water conservation. We've got a governor's directive that's telling us to no unnecessary watering. So that's a whole other issue and a deeper thing, but we like natural a lot better. It's going to live. A lot of formal stuff doesn't seem to live. Or let's pick the right plant. Something that doesn't need much water, doesn't need much grooming, because we're not going to be out there with our little trimmers out there doing it. We have big equipment. Our equipment is big. We don't have a little push mower. We have mowers, tractor mowers, big, because we have a lot of acres that we have to mow. It's kind of fun. And then really, do we really need it? And that's a challenge, and that could be something the area manager has to do, but with our financial times and things like that, how bad do we really need it? Maybe we do. And then the plants. So trees, growth patterns, the right growth pattern in the right spot. Otherwise, it's going to go big, it's going into the lane. Some grow too fast and they get brittle, and as soon as there's a snowstorm or an ice storm, they fall over. That's one more thing we have to do. So we don't want brittle plants. No poplars. No big leaf maples that drop right next to the inlets. They plug them. We have choices. We can make good ones and not create this stuff for us. So a lot of this stuff isn't rocket science. We can still do a good job. We can still make it pretty and not create heavy maintenance activities. And spacing of trees. Have you ever seen them where they're all splopped out all over? We'd have to do a slalom with a mower. So what sometimes happens with those, if they look like little sprigs and it's spring, they might not be seen. And then we don't have trees anymore because they have been mowed down. Unintentionally, but they'll be gone. And there's something that's a little more challenging, but when you get into heavy snow areas, snow storage. Because a lot of times, to keep the road open in the winter, we're going to have to blow the snow up a berm or shove it off. This can happen around bridges. When we go plowing in, the stuff's got to go somewhere. And this can be a big area. So this is a question, especially in your mountain areas, to talk to the districts about. And it may mean right away, I hope not, because that's always another challenge, but is that a real issue for them there? So that can often happen around bridges, with new bridges and things like that. Culverts. The hydraulics analysis might show you only need a pipe like this. We can't maintain it. We can't get anything in it to clean it out. Also, you've got a lot of debris coming in through a lot of them. So if you don't know if there's a lot of debris coming down that drainage, ask. Ask maintenance what they know. And then design it big enough for the bed load as well as the water. Otherwise, we're out there in the middle of the winter in big range, trying to unplug them. And if we don't get to them fast enough, or it comes down at once, I wish I had a photo, but we now have a section of, believe it or not, same district, that the water came down the ditch, the culvert plugged, the water went through the embankment on both sides, it eroded the soil out, and the next thing you know, it had enough friction, and it blew that culvert way out. I don't know where it is, but it's gone. So then all you have is this little thin pavement, and that's it. You got a little bridge. We're not letting anything over that bridge. It wasn't designed for being a bridge. We leave that to our bridge designers, not the pavement designers. So anyway, bigger is better. So from our perspective, obviously with cost constraints, but make sure you've got all your inputs for those kind of things, and you'll be doing the right thing for the construction project as well as long-term survivability of your features. So this is not the greatest photo, but it's showing one of the mowers, and one side's down and the other side's kind of up in the air, but it's big. These are big. This is just a quick shot of the size of some of our 10-yard trucks. And with plows, we're working on some conspicuity lighting because they keep running into us. You'd think they're big, they're bold. These people pass on the right of us. They do. They've got signs up saying don't pass on the right. They pass on the right. So we've got wings. This is just one example. It's got a plow on the front that's big and heavy. We've got a wing on the right. Sometimes we'll have one on the left. Sometimes we'll have one underneath. It's actually got some pressure. Sometimes we've got a trailer now that's a plow. It's a tow plow. They stay away from that one because it looks like it's hijacked. I mean, it's jackknifed, not hijacked, jackknifed. So we've made it at least crazy enough that they go, whoa, I don't know what that is. And they stay back, which is pretty cool. But we keep trying different things, but we make this as wide as we can with one driver. So kind of closing up here, the district managers, really they have a lot of authority out there for their side. Not during project delivery. They're helping working with you by influence. But the rest of the time, they are taking care of that whole system day to day, in and out with incident response, emergencies, third-party users. It's a lot, and having to make those trade-offs. But they really want you guys to succeed, because the more you succeed, the easier their life is. So if you really, please talk to them. I promise you they won't bite. And if they do bite, call me. Because I can bite too. But I won't bite you. Your boss, maybe, but not you. Hey, I got you laughing. It's late and I know you want to go. And just to put it in perspective, your work is super critical, but also think about that cycle and that time frame. That's a blip. It's really a year or two in the life of a 50-year, 100-year stud of highway. Some of these pavement systems are super old, and depending on what project it is and what you're working on, there may not be another project out there for 50, 60 years. And that'll happen on the low-volume road system all the time. Now, if you get back into studded tire sections, you're out there every 7 years. Between Salem and Portland, we got to repave. Downtown Portland, we got to repave. So we'll at least be back with a paver, but who wants to have to do everything else at the same time? Questions? Well,
give me enough time to walk over there if you have a question.
You can
I
tell
know
it's
there
supposed
is.
to- Joe, no.
If one of these folks were interested in becoming a district maintenance manager in their career, which I can tell you is very rewarding, because you get to solve problems like right now today, how would they go about that, Lucy?
Wow. Well, trying to think. I didn't go for being a district manager. I would say, designer. I'd say try to get a shift over to the district office for a bit and get some experience helping them. maybe designing on some of their projects, following them along. How did I, going and becoming an assistant district manager, actually becoming an assistant construction project manager gives you a lot of the same skills for contract management. They do a lot of contract management. There's a lot of judgment, and you have to be fairly flexible. So part of it is your own skills as well as experience. So wish you'd hit me with that a little different way. But I mean, if I think about Joe became a district manager as from being a construction. So it helps you a lot because they're out managing a lot of contracts. And in these emergencies, they're making all sorts of decisions on the fly. So first of all, can you learn to make, with limited information, good decisions? Know when you need help and call for it. When do you need that technical expert and when not? Those are huge. It's judgment, judgment, judgment. Political savvy is, to some level, is really important because if you tell off the wrong person, they end up talking to legislators, others. They better have an answer that is true and honest, but doesn't give the farm away and doesn't tick them all off at the same time. So I think really it helps if you go from design to construction. I think learning more about what maintenance needs as you design and helping them with what they're needing and talking to them can help a lot. Get to know them, shadow them would be another one. I started in the payments unit and was always working with maintenance on what the issues were. Designing, and half the time my data didn't always tell me everything. They did. They knew what they were dealing with all the time. So between the actual calculations, what maintenance was telling me, I put together a design. And they were, so understanding that they don't have all the resources and they got to make tough trade-offs too. So trade-off decision making. So if you want to be a DM, you got to learn how to make trade-offs. If you can work in the gray, you have the potential to be a DM. If you're super black and white, wrong job for you. And that's okay. That's okay. It's just wrong job. Because we don't get to live in that perfect world at all. And honestly, most of you don't either. Most of you don't either. Not if you're going to be really good at what you're doing. You've got to factor it all in and know which is going to prioritize. And so for me, my encouragement to you is grow, learn. I'm hearing most of you are in the first year or so. Take your opportunities to get broad experience. Ask questions. Why are you doing that? And ask it across and learn, because there's a lot to learn. In the payments unit, you actually learn a lot about different types of designing. You learn staging, because you got to come up with a design that works for the staging. In fact, you're half the time creating some of the staging designs so that you can get your pavement design built in the first place. So it goes back way. Drainage. So anyway, get cross-trained. One, learn your job right now really well. Get cross-trained, ask lots of questions. So that's a lot of contorted answer to what sounds like a simple question. Anything else, Joe?
Because one of my bosses is here, and I want to get to my other one before you call.
I'm not calling your other one. Yeah.
So I have a real question this time. I'm trying to think how to word this. So I'm wondering how to build better communication bridges between the regions and districts. And what I'm thinking of specifically is, I'm not saying this happens a lot, but it has happened. You know,
It all happens.
So sometimes we might get the region signal operations, people might get a call saying the signal's not working, and a district paving project has come through and destroyed all of our loop detectors. For just
That
for
would never
example.
happen. So, well, I would say, depending on what it is, we do have signal techs, and it's somewhat of a centralized function. So they actually work for me. Most of highway maintenance works out for the districts. There are certain functions that actually work in my branch. Signal technicians, statewide, they report back here. So I would say is one, know your signal technicians so that they can go. Sometimes it's the electricians. immediate urgent response for signal work can be the electricians. If it's not their deal, then they need to call the signal techs. So if you've got a bunch of work going on a project, one, let's make sure the loops get in. So hopefully your traffic engineers know to get the loops into the project. If it's just busted and we need to go out and do something, I have your traffic ops. Are you in traffic ops?
Yeah, signal ops.
Signal ops? Great. Call TSSU and work on building that relationship. Jason Shaddix is our new manager there. Did I get to the right, what you're asking about, or not?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think, maybe, yeah.
All right. How to do it? Reach out and make the calls. But if something's broken, you can call the district. They'll know who to call if you don't.
Okay.
We can talk some more if you want. But oh, no. Are you giving it back to him?
I think the batteries are going out on this, Joe.
Hey, congratulations to these three ladies. They're almost done. All it is to get through Steve. But if I could add to that, since I was a district maintenance manager and a tech center manager at one time, when I was tech center manager in Region 3, I didn't really worry about the area managers. Maintenance owns the road. And I took it from that point of view that my two district maintenance managers, if they needed something, we jumped on it as a tech center immediately, because the turnaround time for a district maintenance manager is like right now, today, this minute. You saw the trees, the landslides, the culvert that she mentioned. Well, we can get to it when we get the commission to say okie dokie or get more money for it. No, the roadway's closed, and so the ambulances can't get through. Gasoline and ice cream and beer can't get down to Brookings, which is a problem for you, right? Or it was.
It was, yes.
But the immediacy, and if you've ever been a consultant, you always talked about TAT, turnaround time, and it's like bam, 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 right now because the road's closed. And those vital services, health and safety and whatnot, are just gone. And the district maintenance manager and their transportation, the TMMs in particular, are under huge pressure. They're getting calls from every congressperson, mayor, city council, newspapers in the world. So that's how I always did it. And then if your district maintenance manager has a great relationship, not a good one, but a great one with the area manager, it solves lots of problems with those two in a leadership role.
They have to communicate and support each other. Very critical. So, yes, in an emergency, you may not get to follow all your normal design procedures and check all the boxes and everything else. Work with your manager. That should be okay, because at some point we're going to have to take certain risks in, no, maybe not for bridges. But for certain things to get that road back open. And so we may do a temporary repair and come back later with a permanent one. And if maintenance can't find you guys, we may do it and have to have it evaluated to see if we got to go back and undo what we did. And that's just kind of the way it is, especially for culverts. So we're going to do something to get it open, and then we may have to go back and fix it. Even with the environmental requirements, we've got emergency programmatics that we can go in an emergency, and we will skip a bunch of normal checks. And then we'll go tell them what we did, and they'll evaluate and see if we have to go back and mitigate. But we will get the road back open as quickly as we can. Good luck, everybody. Stick around.
Okay. While Lucy and Joe are still in the room, Joe, I'm going to ask you a question now.
All right,
No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just going to mention, while we got construction and maintenance in the room, I think you've heard it from other speakers and even myself, that the maintenance group, their district managers, your maintenance offices, they're the ones that know all the stuff about the project site, the actuals on the ground things. We really need to reach out to them and communicate with them. And it's best to call them and get in their office and ride around in their truck with them, and that's where you're going to find out all the stuff you need to know. Likewise with construction, I think even Joe was mentioning that while your project's being constructed, go out in the field, because you can talk to the people, and even if you call them, is how is it going out there? Oh, fine. And that's about all you get. but go out and visit them on the job site, and then they're going to say, hey, while you're here, they're going to tell you every single thing that they're struggling with about your design or what have you. So you learn the things out on the ground. So get out there, and I would suggest even get out there at least once every one time per project. Make sure you contact the PM office though before you go out, so they can tell you where to park and who to meet with and whatever the safety protocols out there. But get out in the field and visit your project sites while they're being built, because you're going to learn a lot. And if you get any flack, just tell them that the chief engineer said it was okay to do that.
Or the construction engineer.
Or the construction engineer, or the maintenance engineer. So,
I don't want to read much during construction projects, but that's right. Always check in with your PM before you're out there. I showed up once. I just have a little story. They knew I was coming, but the inspector didn't. And this was as a pavements engineer, and we were working on a big, long, new concrete pavement job, and the project manager knew I was coming, but he hadn't told the inspector. So I go pulling up on the job, and here comes this great big concrete paving machine down the hill. And there was this one feature that I'd done a special rebar design for. And so guess what they were coming up on? There it was. So I walk up. I didn't have the plans with me, but I knew we had doubled the dowel bars because we got rid of another, it was in rock. We weren't going to blast the rock to put an anchoring system in for the end of the concrete. So I walk up and I go, where are the dowel bars? The inspector's response, you don't forget these. They go, you should have told me you were coming out. I'm like, well, no. Well, yes, but, and I had, but I go, didn't you see the detail here? And so they quickly, and nobody slowed the machine down, but they got somebody with a torch, and they started cutting up rebar and getting it tied in, and got it in just in time. But anyway, that's not a good reason not to go out to a job. So go out to the job, and if you're inspectoring, look for those special details. So, but it was pretty funny. Not for me, because really the design could have blown up, and I never would have known that it was not my design, that there was no extra dowel bars. And then I would have never done that again. So I said, whoops, that didn't work. But actually, it might have worked. We just didn't know that it worked.